Well, hello, everyone. Give me a chance here to get the presentation up on the screen for you all. All right. Can we see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks. Let's get it started here. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creating a Literature Review, the second workshop in our Undergraduate Research Symposium Workshop Wednesday series. My name is Greg Schaberg, and I am a writing specialist in the Learning Commons.
And I am Shakita Allen, and I'm a communication specialist in the Learning Commons as well.
For the next 30 to 40 minutes, Ms. Allen and I hope to demonstrate how you can use a lit review as a tool, not only to become better acquainted with existing research that's been done on your topic, but also to become better aware of where more research is needed in the field so that you can help advance the conversation regarding your topic. Now, in the first workshop in our Workshop Wednesday series, faculty librarian Jules Bailey provided tips and strategies for researching your topics, and she emphasized the importance of narrowing the focus of your topic. That's where we'll begin today, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Allen to get us started.
Wonderful. Thank you, Greg. So from today's workshop earlier, remember when you're generating a research question, you want to choose an interesting topic. You want to do some preliminary research on your general topic because you want to narrow your focus. And when you're looking for that research, remember you're looking at the issues that scholars and researchers are discussing about your topic, and when it comes to your topic, and what questions occur to you as you read those articles, because you want to make sure that you're focusing your topic. Be sure to consider your audience, who may be reading about your topic, who may be discussing your topic, what scholarly intellectuals will be reading about your topic, and also think about asking open-ended questions. How, what, when, where, and why, and because you want to be sure that you continue discussion as you go along. So just remember all of these tips when you're thinking about your research question and how to take your question and narrow it to a focus. And Mr. Schaberg is going to talk to you about how to narrow the focus of a research question.
Thank you. So you might start with a general question, just like Ms. Allen said. What's the effect on the environment from climate change? And that's an interesting general question, but it's really broad. There's so much you could talk about regarding this topic. So we need to narrow our focus. And maybe as you're researching, you realize that you want to focus on how climate change is affecting animals in the environment. And then you encounter a study about penguins in Antarctica who are struggling because the glaciers are melting. And you find that fascinating. You say, this is the area that I want to focus on. And so you narrow your question even more to what is the most significant effect of glacial melting on the lives of penguins in Antarctica. That way, you now have a more narrowed focus. And when you're doing more advanced research, you are finding studies that just relate to penguins in Antarctica. You're looking also to at the effects, and you're kind of ranking them and looking for which one is most significant. So this is an example of taking a very general, broad topic, narrowing it in the preliminary stage down to a more focused topic, and that you will continue to research. You might also say to yourself, I'd like to look at diabetes and how the medical community is treating it. That's great. Again, very broad. Probably several ways they are treating it. Probably depends on the doctor and the area. you need to narrow the focus. As you research, you find that there are factors that can help predict when an individual will develop diabetes. And you might also see that uh, being aware of these factors or effectively utilizing these factors may help prevent individuals from getting diabetes. And you find that even more fascinating. So you narrow your focus to what main environmental, behavioral, and genetic factors predict whether Americans will develop diabetes, and how can these commonalities be used to aid the medical community in prevention of the disease. So now your research is focused on these factors and how the medical community can use these factors to help the broader community avoid developing diabetes. So this is just an example of how you can start very general. It's okay to start general. You don't have to start with a complex focused topic. You might have one, but if you don't, it's okay to start in a very broad way when you research. But after that preliminary research, you should arrive at a more complex focused question. And once you're there, evaluate your question to make sure that it is appropriate.
And when you evaluate your question, you want to ask yourself several questions about your research question. You want to ask yourself things like, is your research question clear? You want to make sure that it's clear enough that you can add to the discussion. You also want to make sure that your research question is focused. Is it focused? And when you think about being focused, you don't want your research question to be something that is just a factual statement. It needs to add to the discussion or the argument so that you can add on information. You want to ask yourself, is your research question complex enough so that you can pull out information and also add on to your lit review as well. And then you want to begin your research and continue your research, because remember, you've started your research, you want to continue that research because you may find other sources that add on to the discussion as well. And when you do your research, what you're doing is you're collecting resources that you're going to need, because you're going to turn all of that research into an annotated bibliography. And then what an annotated, what that is just a small document that houses all of the research that you have collected for your research question. So in an annotation, in an APA style annotation, you're going to have the citation for your resources. That's going to be at the beginning of the annotation. And then you're going to have a small annotation piece that gives a little summary about the resources that you found. Now, this summary can include discussions about what it was. It can also include information about how evaluative it was to your discussion. It can also include information about how useful it's going to be to your lit review or your discussion. And what this is just, and this bibliography is just to keep track of your sources, because you're going to have to refer back to them. And remember, an annotation is really short. You're looking at maybe 3 to 5 sentences. So you don't want something really long, especially if you have several resources that you're looking for. And you're going to use this information to write your lit review, because these are the discussions that others are having about your focused topic. Any questions so far about what we've talked about? Great, because we're going to move into our question about what we just talked about. So the question is, in terms of the annotation, what you need to include in your annotation, what information might be included in an annotation that we know of that we just went over? And if you like, you can put that in the chat, or you can unmute yourself if you like.
Now, we're not talking about the citation here, part of the entry. We're talking about the annotation. What information might you include?
And if we don't remember the annotation is that short piece. And in that annotation, remember it has to be an evaluative piece. So remember in that annotation, you're going to provide information about how resourceful the resource is. Yes, Faith. The question is what information might be included in the annotation, just the annotation portion, the little summary portion. Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
No, that's
Remember
fine.
this, the summary portion is a short summary about the article itself. So remember, you're looking for these articles to add to your discussion. So you got to give the reader, your reader or your audience, information about these articles or
You
these scholarly journals that others
right.
are talking about in your discussion.
You
So
might have the author talk about the author a little if that's important. Has the author done other studies on the topic that this adds to or contradicts? How does it support or contradict other studies that you've read out there? Remember, this is for you. This is to help you remember what you researched and write the literature review. And in the literature review, you're going to be comparing and contrasting the literature. So you want to have information in your annotations
correct.
that actually will help you do that.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. So after you review the literature, you've done the research, you've narrowed your focus. Now, what we'd suggest you do is brainstorm a little. Summarize what's been done in the field. Just take everything you've looked at, look at your annotations, kind of look them over, and write out what has been done. Think about what has not been done. And that's really an important area because in the research symposium, judges will reward original research. If you provide original research, that will advance the conversation in the field. If you just summarize what everyone else has already done and published, all you're doing is summarizing the conversation instead of contributing to it. So what you want to do is look at what hasn't been done and what needs to be done so that you can, enter the conversation at that point. As you research, you'll notice connections. So if you notice that a connection takes you off in a different direction than you were originally headed, that's okay. Follow that path. It might be fruitful. Remember when we talked about taking that general topic and narrowing it down from everything to animals to penguins to what's most affecting them due to climate change. That is an example of being led down different paths to finally get to where you need to be. Once you find that narrow focus, that's when you will, all of the research that you do will target that area. So if you need to look up, when you're looking at the reference page of the articles that you read, you will see that they've referred to other articles. Don't be afraid to use that reference page to branch out and to read what others have done. It might give you welcome insight. So once you've brainstormed a little and you have a good idea of, how the studies relate to one another and how you can move forward, it's time to begin outlining the literature review. And so what a lit review does, as we've said, is it surveys, summarizes, and links together research in the field. So it is for your reader, and in this case, your reader is you, but you might take some of this information and transfer it into a poster that you're creating for the symposium, or you might present it in an oral presentation for the symposium as well. So you want to make sure that you give a good summary and make connections for your listeners or viewers on how these articles, this research is all connected. It'll assess and distill it for the reader. You will only be focused on, major studies that have moved the topic forward in the field. And so your viewers or listeners don't have to hear about the thousands of different studies that occurred on the periphery. They're just focused on where we started, where we are now, and how we got there. A lit review also covers the major findings in the field, how they relate, dissimilar from other findings. You're going to look at how researchers' studies have compared to one another, how they contrast from one another, and you're going to look at problems within each study. Were there perhaps problems with the population studied or the sample size? So you're going to want to examine some of those issues as well and bring those out in your literature review. Not every study has problems, but there might be some that are flawed, and you want to make sure that you mention those flaws when discussing those studies. A literature review also allows you to locate your area of research within the literature. It's how your topic fits in to the conversation. So when you get everything written, you're comparing and contrasting, you see what's still needed. That is your entry point. So that is where you will be. And it helps create relevance to those who are listening or reading your work. Your topic is important. So overall, you want to make sure that by the time your reader finishes this literature review, that he or she understands the major research topic that'll be discussed, understands the broad problem area, but you don't have to be too global when you're describing it. And also the general importance of the topic for those in your field, which is what I was just saying. You just want to make sure that they understand why your research is necessary, that it will contribute something to the overall conversation. Any questions about the brainstorming or maybe kind of creating an outline for the actual lit review? Thank you. Okay, wonderful. I'll pass it back to Ms. Allen.
Wonderful. Thank you. So remember, what Greg Shaber was talking about is, remember, after reviewing the literature of your question, you're looking at what has been done, what has not been done, and what needs to be done. So remember, the focus of your study, of your paper, your thesis needs to perform at least one of the following things. Once you start creating your study or your thesis, it needs to close the gap in research. So is there anything else that needs to be done in your focus in the research that needs to be done to complete it? It needs to test an aspect of a theory. It can do one of these things. That you can test an aspect of a theory. So does this work? Evaluate how it works, why it worked, why it didn't work. It can replicate an important study. So maybe there's an ongoing study right now, and you want to go ahead and replicate that study and see what aspects come out of that study. You can do that. It can retest a hypothesis of an ongoing study with new or improved methodology. So you can actually create something new out of your focus. It can resolve conflicts in the field. So say there's a discussion about your focus that is going back and forth in a scholarly field, and no one has come to an exact conclusion. It can help resolve that conflict or that issue about the topic in the study. or it can create original research. This is rare. However, there is new things happening all the time, and people are presenting new information about topics and hypotheses all the time. So your thesis, your paper, or your study can do that. It can create original research and start a discussion from there. Once you decide what your thesis is going to do, what your paper or your study is going to do, you can now move on to outlining it. And there are several ways that you can outline your literature review. There are several structures that you can use. First type of structure is topical order, organized by the main topics or the issues and emphasize the relationship of the issues to the main problem, which means you just organize it either by date or by how the issue was going throughout chronologically. That is the next order. Chronological order is organize the literature by the dates of the research published. So say something started earlier and now it's just progressing to the present and so forth. The next type of structure you can use is methodological. I cannot say it today.
Methodological.
Methodological. Thank you, Greg.
Mhm.
Compare the resource and conclusions that emerge from different approaches. And so remember, you're comparing and contrasting how information has went on throughout the study, and you can use that structure for your lit review. Another type of structure you can use is general to specific. So you can start very broad with your focus and move to a more focused specific study that relates to the topic. Or you can do vice versa. You can go specific to general. You can start with the very specific information about your topic and move to the general and draw conclusions about your topic and your focus. So any of these structures you can use for your lit review outline. But remember, your lit review is for your use only. So you're using this information to organize your ideas and keep it all in one so that you can refer back to you when you're explaining your focus about your topic. So our next
Okay.
question.
Yay. So, which of the following is not an acceptable way to organize your literature review? Ms. Allen just went through a few ways. Which of these is not an acceptable way?
Very good, Faith. C, yes. No, wait. B, yes. Is B. Summary. Remember, you can do chronological, go in order from the past to the present. You can do methodological. Yeah, I can do that one. And you can also do general to specific. Very good, Faith. Yes.
Great. So now that you have your outline and you pretty much have your structure, let's start writing. So in the introduction of your lit review, you want to make sure that you state the focus and the purpose of your lit review. You want to make that clear. When an individual reads your introduction, they're reading to see if your study kind of fits into their interest. So make sure that your focus and purpose are clear in your introduction. So you want to provide some background information on the topic and its importance in the field. And bring your reader up to speed. It doesn't have to be long and exhaustive, just the highlights to kind of catch your reader up to speed on the topic. Provide connections between the articles that you found, and you can do that briefly. I'm going to show you an example in a moment where we can see how the writer was able to mention many studies, but do it very quickly. Because remember, in the body of the paper is where you're going to be discussing the studies in more details, their strengths, their weaknesses, how they're connected to one another. In the intro, though, you're just kind of including the greatest hits to kind of say, this is what's moved the topic forward over the years. Then at the end of the introduction, you will state your main point. This might be your hypothesis. If you're in the humanities, it could be the claim of your argument. But what new insight can you add to the conversation based on your research? This is what your main point will reveal. So background info on the topic, make sure you have. Make some connections between the articles you found that you're going to cover, and state your main point. But throughout, make sure that your focus and purpose are clear. So when you get to, here's an example of the intro. So this individual was writing about social media and body, image issues. So what the individual did was start back in 2008 with the study that concluded that exposure to mass media is linked to body image and satisfaction or dissatisfaction among women. But then social media came along and things changed. So in 2014, they started to theorize that interactive aspects of social media might influence the impact on body image, and further studies confirmed this. In fact, what these studies found or implied, suggested, was that the more highly visual a platform was, the more likely it was that individuals, both men and women on that platform, would experience body image issues. So, oops, I'm sorry, bumped the mouse. So as you'll notice, their main point that they're giving is that there is a lack of robust research, in yellow, on more highly visual social media, HVSM, such as Instagram and Snapchat, that have gained more recent popularity among younger generations. So this individual is going to focus in this area because there's a lack of research in it. Notice how everything was done in a very brief manner, kind of caught the reader up to speed on the topic, gave the history of the research in chronological order for the most part, and within, like in here, where they're talking about Facebook and adolescent girls had studies in 2013, 2014, and in young adult women in 2013 and 2015 and 2017. And then there was a systematic review by Holland and Timmerman in 2016 that confirmed the relationship between social networking and body image for both women and men. So in a very brief time, that individual talked about the studies that she will discuss, and where everything started historically and where the conversation was at the time that she wrote this. So this is a good, we're going to send out this PowerPoint, and the workshop is being recorded, so the link will always be up there, but we're going to send this to you, Faith, so that you have the information. And we might have you provide us your email address at the end of the presentation so that we're sure to get you a copy. But that pretty much in a nutshell is how you want to create the introduction of your lit review and introduce your topic. So next question. The most important aspect of your introduction should be what? D. Great. Now, D is very important. In fact, all of these things are very important. Creating a good hook is important. Asking a relevant question is important. And providing general background information about the topic is equally as important. Yes. But the most important accomplishment that you want to achieve when a reader finishes your intro is that reader should understand your focus and your purpose.
Yes.
But that was a great guess. That was I mean, they were all important. It was kind of a trick question.
All right, perfect. So when you're writing the body of your literature review, there's some aspects that you need to consider. You want to summarize and synthesize, give an overview of the main points of each of the sources and combine them into a coherent whole. So when you're summarizing the information, kind of lead the discussion into how all of them relate to each other or relevant to each other, and put that information in the summary. You want to analyze and interpret. Don't just paraphrase other researchers because that has already been said. In your own words, you want to add your own interpretations where possible, discussing the significance of the findings in relation to the literature as a whole. Remember, you are always going back to your focus. So you're going to present the information that's happening in the discussion, but you're also going to move into your focus and tell how all of this information relates to your focus. You want to critically evaluate, mention the strengths and weaknesses of your sources. So is there something that the sources does not contribute to, or is there something that needs more contribution to the topic or the subject or the thesis? And then you want to write in a well-structured paragraphs. Use transitional elements such as first, also, moreover, secondly, in conclusion, so that your reader can understand the connection between one point to the next. So you definitely don't want to have your audience or your reader not understanding how each of the points connect to each other. And you can do that by using a variety of patterns of organization. You can use comparisons and contrast. You can use addition. You can use similes, similar connections to one another. You can use cause and effect evaluations and so forth. So you definitely want to make sure that your reader understands the connection of how your focus fits into the discussion and what's being added on to it. Then once you're done with the body, you want to create your conclusion. And what the conclusion needs to do is summarize the key findings you have taken from the literature and emphasize their significance. Provide closure to your audience to let them know that this is the focus of your study is still in progress, or if you create original work that is going to go forward at that point, or did you add to the discussion in some type of way? When you did add to the discussion, what was the importance or the relevance of your findings? And discuss the overall implications of the literature. What's going to happen based on your findings? Make suggestions for future research and how the discussion is going to move on later in the future based on the gaps that you have identified.
Okay, we're in the home stretch. This is we're at the end of getting toward the end of the presentation here. Let's look at some common errors that are made in literature reviews. These are things that some individuals do. A lot of what we've covered will help you avoid doing some of these, but some of the common errors are review isn't logically organized. Ms. Allen gave you several organizational patterns that you could utilize, and sticking to those will help you avoid this error. The review isn't focused on the most important facets of the study in the field. Instead, maybe you go off on tangents here and there and show studies that necessarily did not advance the conversation any. Make sure that you stay focused and move your reader forward with the research. Too few references or outdated references are cited. You don't only want to have 3 references and build your whole research project on 3 sources. You want to have more than that. So make sure that you've done your homework, you've done your research. Know that there will be people who look at your work, if you have a poster, let's say, or if you're giving an oral presentation, they'll be listening to you. And then there's a question and answer period. I mean, a poster presentation, they can walk right up and talk to you. And they might say, well, how come you decided not to use Smith 2019? That was a very important study regarding this topic. You don't want to have those conversations with people. You want to have covered your bases. So make sure that you have enough research done and that you've got up-to-date research done. It's okay to show where the topic started, but move your reader forward to the present and focus on the present. Your research should be on now, not what was. And finally, the review reads like a series of disjointed summaries. That's the last thing you want. As Ms. Allen was saying, you want to connect your ideas with transitional elements so that your reader understands how studies are connected, how they compare, how they contrast, whether they're good, whether they're bad. Make sure that your reader understands these things through your analysis. Your analysis will help the actual presentation seem less like a series of disjointed summaries. So keep that in mind, avoid these errors, and you should be just fine. So since I just told you, are there at least two mistakes that you might want to avoid while researching and writing a literature review? What are at least two, if you can remember? No, we're putting you on the spot, Faith.
Very good. Yes. Not enough resources and making sure it flows. Very good. Yes.
Good. Now, when you receive this presentation, it also includes the references that we used regarding information on writing literature reviews. You might want to look at these resources as well.
And now we want to talk about how we can assist you with the resources we have in the Learning Commons. You can visit the Learning Commons virtually or in person, and we can help you brainstorming your focus. We can help you with the organization of your ideas in your lit review. We can help you with paraphrasing and summarizing the source material. Make sure it's in your own words. We can definitely help you with grammar and mechanics and the documentation, the citations, and so forth in the Learning Commons. Learning Commons is open Monday through Thursday, 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. and Fridays, 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m.
And remember that your faculty advisor is a good resource as well. So you might want to get with your faculty advisor to discuss some of your ideas and some of the problems that you're encountering as well. But know that we are always there if you need us.
And this is our information. If you need to contact us, these are our TCC emails. Jules Bailey did the review this morning on how to research a topic, so you can definitely reach out to her as well. If you have any questions, Faith?